The colossal hulk of steel, a menacing shadow against the subdued British sky, crawled along the narrow country lanes, dwarfing ancient hedgerows and scattering a flock of bewildered sheep. It was a spectacle both terrifying and magnificent, a testament to raw, brutal power. This was no ordinary payload, it was a captured German Tiger tank, a legend whispered in hushed tones across battlefields, a symbol of seemingly invincible enemy might. Its sheer size was breathtaking, its armor a thick, impenetrable skin, and the ominous barrel of its 88mm gun pointed towards the heavens as if in defiance. Rumors of its destructive capability had preceded its arrival, painting a picture of an engineering marvel beyond Allied comprehension. The country held its breath, a mix of apprehension and eager anticipation lingering in the damp autumn air. This was the beast that had terrorized Allied lines, now shackled and on display, a prize beyond measure. Its very presence suggested a turning point, a tangible piece of the enemy's formidable war machine now within reach. Leading the charge to dissect this formidable trophy was Arthur Bell, a man whose hands bore the permanent stains of grease and oil, and whose spectacles were perpetually perched on the end of his nose. Arthur was a British engineer through and through, pragmatic and utterly devoid of romantic notions about warfare or machinery. His domain was a dimly lit, high-security workshop tucked away in the rolling English countryside, a place where the clang of metal and the aroma of solvents were the daily soundtrack. His team, a motley crew of equally dedicated, often eccentric, engineering minds, shared his practical approach, tempered with a uniquely British gallows humor. It was 1943, and the war effort was relentless. Every piece of enemy technology, from a simple radio to a monstrous tank, held immense intelligence value. The British High Command, ever hungry for an edge, had placed immense pressure on Bell's team, unlock the secrets of German engineering, understand its strengths, expose its weaknesses. When the Tiger finally rolled into their workshop, a hush fell over the usually bustling space. The sheer scale of it commanded reverence. It was a war trophy of monumental proportions, its battle scars hinting at the ferocity it had unleashed. For a moment, even Arthur, the hardened pragmatist, felt a tremor of awe. This was the pinnacle of German military design, or so they had been led to believe. However, as the initial wonder subsided and Arthur's keen eyes began their methodical sweep, a subtle unease began to stir within him. His gaze lingered on the seemingly minor imperfections, a crude weld here, a slightly misaligned panel there, signs of hurried repairs. These were not the hallmarks of the flawless, over-engineered machine they had been promised. A flicker of skepticism, quiet but persistent, began to take root. This formidable reputation, it seemed, might not tell the whole story. The beast stood before them, a paradox of impressive might and curious indications of underlying fragility. It was powerful, yes, but Arthur, with his years of coaxing stubborn engines and wrestling with intricate mechanisms, recognized the telltale signs of potential trouble. The whispered legends of its invincibility began to feel less like gospel and more like carefully constructed propaganda. The true nature of this captured Leviathan, they instinctively knew, lay not in the tales of its might, but in the intricate workings of its hidden parts. The real work, the unraveling of its true character, was just beginning. It was going to be an interesting journey, one filled with unexpected revelations and perhaps a few laughs. If you're captivated by these untold war stories and the incredible engineering insights that shape the course of history, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next as Arthur and his team delve deeper into the secrets of the Tiger. The British High Command, still reeling from the initial intelligence reports and the sheer psychological impact of the Tiger tank on the battlefield, issued stringent demands for a comprehensive technical report. Their expectations were sky-high, convinced that beneath the fearsome exterior lay a treasure trove of superior German engineering, innovations that could be reverse-engineered, tactics that could be countered, and a clear understanding of the enemy's technological edge. Arthur Bell and his dedicated team understood the gravity of their mission. This wasn't merely an academic exercise, it was a race against time, a crucial step in understanding the beast that stalked their comrades on foreign soil. Every bolt, every connection, every armored plate would be scrutinized with meticulous precision. Their initial inspections of the behemoth began with a sense of reverent awe, quickly giving way to methodical disassembly. What they found was, at first glance, contradictory. The armor plating was indeed formidable, astonishingly thick and expertly sloped in critical areas, presenting a truly daunting defensive barrier. The 88mm kilowatt K-36 main gun, too, was a masterpiece of destructive power, its bore perfectly machined, its breech mechanism robust. Yet, as they delved deeper into the tank's internal organs, the initial impression of flawless superiority began to crack. They discovered instances of blatant over-engineering, components designed with an almost obsessive complexity when simpler, more robust solutions would have sufficed. It was a marvel on paper, an engineer's dream of ultimate power, but Arthur recognized the telltale signs of a potential nightmare in practice. A growing skepticism began to permeate the workshop. With each panel removed, each system analyzed, the engineers uncovered more inconsistencies. The legendary German efficiency seemed to falter in the face of the Tiger's sheer ambition. Minor flaws that Bell had initially dismissed as battlefield wear now appeared to be intrinsic design choices. Access panels were needlessly difficult to open, electrical conduits were routed in labyrinthine paths that defied logic, and the famously advanced Maybach engine, while powerful, was a dense, intricate contraption that promised maintenance headaches. The tank, designed to instill terror, was starting to look less like an invincible war machine and more like a high-maintenance diva. The problems swiftly escalated from theoretical observations to tangible, frustrating realities during their initial functional tests. The first attempt to rotate the massive turret resulted in a grinding, metallic shriek, followed by a complete jam. Bell's team spent hours diagnosing the issue, only to discover an overly complex hydraulic system prone to minor obstructions. A trial run of the engine, meant to assess its power and responsiveness, turned into a sputtering, wheezing affair, punctuated by alarming plumes of black smoke and the unmistakable stench of leaking fluids. The massive tracks, while providing excellent traction, proved agonizingly difficult to remove and replace, a logistical nightmare for any field repair crew. The team's initial awe, replaced by a nuanced respect for its firepower, slowly but surely shifted into a collective frustration. This supposed pinnacle of engineering was proving to be a temperamental, cantankerous beast. The true antagonist in this unfolding drama wasn't a visible enemy, but the inherent unreliability woven into the very fabric of the Tiger tanks. Complex design. It was a machine built to awe and intimidate, but its operational demands placed immense strain on its components, exacerbated by the relentless wear and tear of active combat and the logistical strains of wartime Germany. Each breakdown, each stubborn refusal to obey, was a stark reminder that even the most impressive specifications could be undermined by practical shortcomings. As the frustrations mounted, a peculiar form of dark humor began to emerge among Bell's engineers. They started finding amusing design flaws and repair challenges with alarming regularity. One engineer discovered an ignition system so convoluted it required 3 men to start the tank simultaneously, one turning a key, another pressing a button, and a third frantically pumping a primer. The constant track link breakages became a running joke, meticulously documented with sarcastic remarks. The Tiger, once a symbol of German invincibility, was gradually transforming in their minds into a comical, if dangerous, mechanical headache, a source of endless anecdotes and exasperated sighs. The laughter and sarcastic remarks among the engineers, born of frustration, did little to appease the higher echelons of command. Pressure mounted daily from above, an invisible hand pushing for answers, for results, demanding a comprehensive report that would undoubtedly confirm the Tiger's legendary status. They dismissed Bell's early concerns as mere nitpicking, the overly cautious observations of engineers perhaps intimidated by such advanced foreign technology. The High Command, still firmly entrenched in the belief that the Tiger was a superior weapon, attributed any reported issues to improper handling or insufficient maintenance knowledge. They were convinced that with the right expertise, this German behemoth would reveal its flawless operational efficiency, proving its worth as a strategic prize. Bell and his team, however, knew better. They were meticulously documenting every grind, every leak, every unforeseen stoppage. As if to spite its overseers, the tank's problems only worsened during the more rigorous testing protocols. The legendary Maybach engine, which had sputtered during initial checks, now exhibited a dramatic and catastrophic failure, seizing completely in a cloud of acrid smoke. It was a complex, time-consuming repair, requiring specialized tools and an entire day's labor, an inconvenience that would be utterly crippling on a battlefield. Frequent track issues continued to plague them, the massive, interlocking components prone to snapping under stress, often at the most inconvenient moments. Each broken track link meant hours of arduous, exposed work for a repair crew, effectively immobilizing the tank. Electrical malfunctions became a daily occurrence, lights flickering, radio communication cutting out, and the power traversing system for the turret often failing, leaving the gun fixed in one direction. The Tiger, far from a reliable war machine, was rapidly proving to be a mechanical money pit, a demanding child that constantly cried for attention and costly repairs. Arthur Bell's concern deepened with each new breakdown. His worries extended beyond the tank's abysmal performance. He was increasingly troubled by the High Command's willful refusal to acknowledge these fundamental flaws. They seemed to operate under a self-imposed delusion, unwilling to shatter the myth of German engineering superiority despite the mounting, undeniable evidence. Their unwavering belief in the Tiger's invincibility was not just frustrating, it was dangerous, potentially leading to misinformed strategic decisions on the front lines. Bell knew that a true understanding of the enemy's capabilities meant facing uncomfortable truths, not clinging to convenient narratives. He tried to articulate the logistical nightmare and operational weaknesses implied by the tank's constant failures, but his reports were met with polite skepticism and thinly veiled impatience. Fed up with the tank's constant breakdowns and the unrealistic expectations placed upon them, a peculiar form of gallows humor began to fester within the engineering team. The joke, as they called it, started subtly. They would perform exaggerated repairs, making a show of consulting oversized manuals for trivial fixes, or meticulously cleaning a pristine part with undue reverence while a critical component remained stubbornly broken. They invented whimsical names for the tank's various ailments, transforming serious mechanical failures into farcical medical diagnoses. The leaking fuel line became Tiger's unfortunate incontinence, a jammed turret was a bout of rotator's rigidity, and the frequent engine stalls were attributed to the chronic case of mechanical narcolepsy. Their frustration found an outlet in this satirical performance, turning the tank's inherent unreliability into a running comedy. It was their way of coping, and a quiet, shared rebellion against the official narrative. To compound the pressure on Bell's team, the High Command began to consider showcasing the captured Tiger for propaganda purposes. They envisioned it as a powerful symbol of Allied victory, a tangible trophy to boost public morale and demonstrate the effectiveness of British intelligence. They were, of course, entirely unaware of its true, temperamental state. The idea of parading this notoriously unreliable machine, which consumed vast amounts of resources and manpower just to keep it intermittently functional, filled Bell with a unique blend of dread and dark amusement. It added an entirely new layer of pressure. Not only did they need to understand its flaws, but they were now expected to somehow fix it, at least superficially, for a grand public debut. The thought alone was enough to make Arthur Bell sigh, his spectacles misting slightly in the cool, oil-scented air of the workshop. The stage was being set for a most unusual performance, one where the star performer was notoriously unpredictable. The thought alone was enough to make Arthur Bell sigh, his spectacles misting slightly in the cool, oil-scented air of the workshop. The stage was being set for a most unusual performance, one where the star performer was notoriously unpredictable. With the looming threat of the propaganda exhibition, Arthur knew he could no longer humor the High Command's delusions. The time for subtle hints and exasperated sighs was over. He needed to unveil the raw, unvarnished truth about the Tiger's unreliability, and he needed to do it in a way that left no room for denial. It was a risky move, directly confronting the deeply ingrained belief in German engineering superiority, but the alternative, allowing a fatally flawed narrative to dictate military strategy, was far more dangerous. He spent days meticulously compiling his report, not just a dry technical document, but a narrative of the Tiger's comedic exasperations. He included photographs of seized parts, detailed accounts of repair times, and even anecdotal evidence from his exasperated team, carefully anonymized, of course. He framed the tank's countless breakdowns not as isolated incidents, but as systemic failures inherent in its overly complex design. He highlighted the astronomical fuel consumption, the constant need for specialized mechanics, and the debilitating impact of its frequent immobilizations on any theoretical combat advantage. The report ended with a blunt, almost comical, summary: the Tiger was a magnificent beast on paper, but a logistical nightmare in the field, more likely to break down than be knocked out by the enemy. The initial meeting with the High Command was, predictably, a disaster. Bell's detailed, if wry, presentation was met with a wall of resistance and thinly veiled skepticism. Generals, accustomed to narratives of efficient German war machines, accused him of bias, of exaggerating minor flaws, even of incompetence. "Are you suggesting, Major Bell," one irascible brigadier snapped, "that our intelligence assessments have been fundamentally incorrect? That the Germans are building lemons?" Another suggested Bell's team simply wasn't skilled enough to handle such advanced machinery. They clung desperately to their preconceived notions, the narrative of invincible German engineering a comforting shield against the brutal realities of war. They simply could not fathom that their formidable enemy could produce something so inherently flawed. Recognizing that words alone would not suffice, Bell played his trump card. He proposed a live demonstration. Not a propaganda display of prowess, but an unadulterated showcase of the Tiger's true character. The High Command, still arrogant in their conviction, grudgingly agreed, believing Bell would inevitably demonstrate his own team's shortcomings. What followed was a farcical display that would have been comedic if the stakes hadn't been so high. Bell instructed his team to simply run the tank through a series of routine maneuvers, allowing its inherent flaws to manifest naturally. The demonstration began with the engine refusing to start for a solid 10 minutes, then sputtering violently, spewing black smoke. The turret jammed midway through a rotation. A track link snapped with a loud clang during a simple turn. The radio crackled intermittently, then died. Each failure was painstakingly documented by a silent, growingly pale group of officers. It was a humiliating, yet undeniably effective, display of mechanical incompetence, turning the High Command's smug confidence into open-mouthed shock and profound embarrassment. As the Tiger finally coasted to a halt, stranded ignominiously in the middle of the testing ground, a palpable silence hung in the air. The High Command, their faces a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror, finally began to accept the reality of the Tiger's issues. It wasn't a perfect, unassailable war machine, it was a temperamental, high-maintenance behemoth, prone to spectacular failures. The shift in perspective was slow, grudging, but undeniable. Bell hadn't just reported the flaws, he had made them undeniable, vividly, and hilariously clear. For Bell and his team, witnessing the High Command's visible capitulation was a huge morale boost. Their shared frustration, once a burden, now forged a stronger bond of camaraderie. They had been vindicated. The quiet jokes, the exaggerated repairs, the satirical diagnoses, they had all been steps towards this moment. They had exposed the truth, not with grand pronouncements, but with grease-stained hands and a persistent dedication to operational reality. There was a sense of collective achievement, a quiet triumph in having shattered a dangerous myth and forced a crucial, albeit uncomfortable, understanding upon those who wielded strategic power. The broken tank, in its hilarious incompetence, had become their unlikely ally. The broken tank, in its hilarious incompetence, had become their unlikely ally. Despite the undeniable evidence of the Tiger's profound mechanical issues, the High Command, ever mindful of public perception, decided the propaganda show must go on. The captured behemoth was too powerful a symbol to simply disappear into a remote workshop. However, its public presentation would now have a subtle twist. Instead of showcasing an invincible German superweapon, it would become a testament to Allied resourcefulness, a trophy of war that also quietly exposed the enemy's flawed engineering. This shift in narrative, however slight, presented Arthur Bell with a fresh dilemma, a new challenge to navigate. Bell was tasked with making the tank presentable for its public debut, a delicate balance between functionality and truthful representation. The High Command needed it to look impressive, to appear operational, but Bell saw a deeper opportunity. This was his chance to send a more profound message, one that subtly, yet effectively, reinforced the true nature of the enemy's supposed technological superiority. He wasn't just preparing a tank for an exhibition, he was orchestrating a performance, a carefully choreographed display of both might and inherent weakness. His team, now united in their mission to expose the Tiger's truth, embraced the task with renewed vigor and a mischievous glint in their eyes. The engineers, a collective of ingenious minds now fully unleashed, devised a series of clever, almost theatrical, repairs. These weren't intended for long-term solutions, they were temporary fixes, designed to highlight the tank's inherent vulnerabilities even as they made it appear functional for short bursts. For instance, the perpetually failing electrical system was given a jury-rigged bypass, allowing the turret to traverse for precisely 3 minutes before an audible click and a visible flicker brought it to a halt, requiring a manual override that involved an engineer theatrically wrestling with a large crank. The engine, still prone to dramatic stalls, was fitted with an almost comically oversized hand crank starter, ensuring that every public startup would be a laborious, grunting affair, a stark contrast to the effortless hum of an Allied tank. They even developed a method to induce a minor, but visually noticeable, oil leak at opportune moments, a glistening trail of dark fluid appearing like a tear from the eye of the wounded beast. Humor and improvisation became their primary tools, transforming potential embarrassment into a subtle critique. The day of the propaganda event arrived, a meticulously planned affair designed to boost public morale. Crowds gathered, eager to see the legendary Tiger tank up close. Senior officers, politicians, and members of the press mingled, sipping tea and exchanging pleasantries as anticipation built. The Tiger, freshly painted and polished, looked magnificent, an imposing silhouette against the grey British sky. But beneath its gleaming facade, Bell's team was orchestrating a masterclass in controlled chaos. As the tank rumbled to life, the hand crank starter was deployed with exaggerated effort, drawing murmurs from the crowd. During a slow, ceremonial pass, the rigged turret froze as planned, prompting a visible struggle from the crew to get it moving again, while a small, but persistent, oil leak began to bloom on the ground beneath. These minor, almost theatrical malfunctions were subtle enough not to disrupt the overall message of Allied triumph, but noticeable enough for the discerning observer. The beauty of Bell's plan lay in its subtlety. The general public, largely unaware of the true extent of the tank's unreliability, found the minor hiccups endearing, attributing them to the excitement of the moment or the sheer complexity of the machine. But for the high-ranking officials and curious journalists who had been privy to Bell's earlier, more direct presentation, these malfunctions were confirmation, a knowing wink from the engineers. They saw the humor in the tank's shortcomings, the irony of such an imposing machine being so utterly temperamental. Unbeknownst to many, they were unknowingly participating in Bell's subtle critique, a collective realization that even the most fearsome enemy technology could be brought low not just by Allied firepower, but by its own inherent, frustrating vulnerabilities. The Tiger, for all its might, was a diva, and Bell's team had just made sure everyone knew it, without uttering a single word of direct criticism. The shared amusement solidified a quiet understanding, a new form of propaganda more powerful than simple declarations of victory. The shared amusement solidified a quiet understanding, a new form of propaganda more powerful than simple declarations of victory. But the true climax of Bell's subtle spectacle was yet to come. During a pivotal moment in the demonstration, as the Tiger was meant to execute a precisely choreographed turn before a grandstand packed with dignitaries, including a particularly stern General Montgomery, a critical, pre-planned malfunction occurred. The tank, meant to impress with its sheer destructive potential, dramatically broke down. It wasn't a subtle leak or a minor jam this time, it was a screeching metal-on-metal groan, followed by a violent shudder that sent a ripple through the crowd, and then, an abrupt, dead silence. The mighty engine sputtered into an ignominious halt, the massive tracks locking up completely, leaving the formidable war machine stranded directly in front of the assembled high command, its huge gun pointing uselessly towards the horizon. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers, followed by an awkward, tense silence. This was far beyond a quirk, this was a full-blown, public humiliation, a moment of intense embarrassment and palpable tension that threatened to unravel the entire propaganda effort. The air hung heavy with unspoken mortification, and the staff officers around Montgomery began to shift uncomfortably. Bell, standing discreetly amongst his team, braced himself for the inevitable explosion of an angry general. Yet, to everyone's utter astonishment, instead of the expected thunderous reprimand, General Montgomery threw his head back and burst into a booming, hearty laughter. It wasn't a polite chuckle, it was a genuine, unrestrained laugh that echoed across the field, cutting through the tension like a knife. He clapped his hands together, wiping a tear from his eye. He had, of course, been discreetly prepped by Bell's intelligence. He knew the truth about the tiger, and he understood the subtle brilliance of Bell's demonstration. Standing tall, he addressed the stunned crowd, his voice carrying surprising warmth. "Well, gentlemen," he boomed, a wide grin spreading across his face. "It seems our German friends build magnificent trophies, but rather, temperamental war machines." He then proceeded to commend the British engineers for their ingenuity in persuading the enemy's finest to reveal its true character, transforming the profound embarrassment into a moment of shared humor and profound understanding. A wave of relieved laughter swept through the crowd, the tension immediately dissipating. Bell and his team exchanged triumphant glances. Their honesty and resourcefulness had not only been acknowledged but publicly celebrated. Montgomery, as if on cue, elaborated further, praising the sharp minds of British engineers who could dissect, understand, and even expose the quirks of any enemy technology. He made a powerful statement about British adaptability and resilience, not just on the battlefield, but in the workshops where the true nature of their opponent's equipment was laid bare. He spoke of the importance of knowing one's enemy, flaws and all, and how this captured tiger, despite its majestic appearance, was now teaching them invaluable lessons about German manufacturing priorities, sheer power over practical reliability. In that moment, a new form of victory unfolded for the engineers. They realized that their meticulous work, their endless hours of frustration and their shared, dark humor had achieved something far greater than simply reporting technical data. They had exposed the psychological and logistical vulnerabilities of the enemy's most prized weapon, stripping away its aura of invincibility. This wasn't merely a mechanical breakdown, it was a symbolic one, a blow to German morale and a powerful boost to Allied confidence. The engineers had discovered that sometimes, the most effective weapon against a seemingly superior foe wasn't just brute force, but the strategic revelation of its hidden weaknesses, presented with wit and undeniable truth. The laughter echoing across the demonstration field was sweeter than any trumpet fanfare, a testament to their quiet triumph. They had taken a symbol of terror and, through their unconventional approach, had transformed it into a symbol of Allied ingenuity and the enemy's Achilles heel. The laughter echoing across the demonstration field was sweeter than any trumpet fanfare, a testament to their quiet triumph. They had taken a symbol of terror and, through their unconventional approach, had transformed it into a symbol of Allied ingenuity and the enemy's Achilles heel. Following this unforgettable public exposé, the fate of the Tiger tank was sealed. It was officially declared by the High Command to be more of a logistical burden than a genuine strategic asset. Its immense size, its complex mechanisms, and its insatiable appetite for fuel and specialized maintenance were meticulously documented in comprehensive reports. These findings, far from being suppressed, were disseminated throughout Allied forces, providing invaluable intelligence. Commanders on the ground received detailed analyses of the Tiger's operational limitations, equipping them with profound insights into German engineering vulnerabilities. The myth of its invincibility crumbled, replaced by a pragmatic understanding of its inherent weaknesses, which ironically became a strength for the Allied war effort. Arthur Bell and his dedicated team had done more than just dismantle a tank, they had dismantled a psychological weapon. Through their humor, their relentless dedication to truth, and their sheer ingenuity, they had not only exposed the critical flaws of the Tiger but had also contributed significantly to Allied intelligence and, perhaps even more importantly, to morale. They had proven, without firing a single shot, that human cleverness and the ability to find humor even in the most daunting circumstances could be as potent, if not more so, than the heaviest armor or the largest gun. Their work became a quiet legend within engineering circles, a testament to the power of practical observation over blind acceptance of propaganda. They embodied the spirit of British resilience, finding the weak link in the chain, not just mechanically, but psychologically. Years later, long after the war had ended and the roar of battle had faded to a distant echo, Arthur Bell would often reflect on the true nature of warfare. It wasn't solely about superior technology, he mused, leaning back in his armchair, the scent of pipe tobacco filling his cozy study. It was about the human spirit, its remarkable adaptability, and its profound capacity to find light, even laughter, in the very darkest of times. The broken tank, the one that had caused so much frustration and so many headaches, had ironically become a powerful symbol of British resilience. It represented their refusal to be intimidated, their unwavering commitment to confronting reality, and their unique ability to mock the very things intended to terrify them. The Tiger, an emblem of German might, had ultimately served as a teaching tool, a colossal, temperamental tutor that reinforced the fundamental truth: no machine, however fearsome, could ever truly conquer the indomitable spirit of humanity. Its legacy was not one of terror, but one of unexpected, profound lessons learned, lessons that extended far beyond the realm of engineering. It was a story of defiance, of wit, and of finding strength in unexpected places. If this story of engineering ingenuity, wartime wit, and the power of a good laugh resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video. Your support helps us bring more untold stories of courage and cleverness to light. Share it with friends and family who appreciate the hidden narratives of history, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on Arthur Bell's ingenious approach to exposing the Tiger's true nature. And don't forget to check out another video from our channel for more fascinating, often overlooked, tales of wartime bravery and wit. There are countless stories waiting to be discovered, each one a testament to the extraordinary individuals who shaped our world during conflict.